minutes going through the technology, and it's you know, it's simple, but it's maybe a little intimidating if you haven't done it before. Let's just say it's like anything in life. If you've never played tennis before, you're going to hit the ball and hit it into the net a couple of times before you get the hang of it. With podcasting, it's real, and this is best done if you feel intimidated by this by any teenager, right? If you're going to know a teenager, they can figure this out because it's that simple. You can go all the way with equipment, from the sound equipment like we have in the room, we have at the back of the big conferences. You see the guys, there's 5 of them like Mission Control in Houston, and they've got, you know, like a recording studio with balancers and baffle microphones and so on. All the way down to what I do is just carry this $100 digital tape recorder with me. There's a picture over there. It's an Olympus DS330. They don't make this model anymore, but there's many other models. I personally like Olympus. They're lightweight. They literally fit in your shirt pocket. And I always carry a spare set of batteries. It's digital, so there's no moving parts. A AAA battery, 2 AAA batteries last about 12 hours. But you might, you know, go out and leave it on accidentally, so I've always got a spare pair. And this is what I record with. Now, so what I'd offer is, you want the kind of equipment that's as least intrusive as possible, and don't worry too much about the quality, because I think the listener responds better to good content that is live, that sounds real, versus something scripted in a studio. And the way I would justify that assertion is, if you listen to CNN, the most exciting, you know, video on the TV is often, what was it, the first, like, Iraq war, when they had Wolf Blitzer on the roof of the hotel, you know, and he was like crouched down behind a wall, and he said, oh, I can see a flash in the distance. You could hardly hear what he was saying, and yet it was gripping stuff. And who cared if, you know, the sound quality was perfect? Step 1, recording. And I've already mentioned this, I think, but like I found with Nora Denzel, the key is the content. The content is really king. So think of an area where, not necessarily when your executive's standing on stage presenting, but maybe just before they go on, or just after they come off. How was it to address the amalgamated Western region plumbership here today? Oh, it was great. Those guys are really pumped up. And I saw Joe the plumber in the front row, and he's for us, and so on. So you can get content if you're agile with a small digital recorder. These are my opinions. You need a script only if you're the solo expert. Obviously, you're going to speak for 45 minutes sitting at home alone or in the office. You need to have scripted it as a speechwriter for your speaker. If you're interviewing, like I did just now, a little role play, I always prep the interviewee. And the way I prep them is I say, you know, you've got control over anything that I publish. Okay? You can approve it. I can send you a copy. Usually they say, no, that's okay. But if I'm going to put you out on the internet, you can listen to the edited version. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, you know, what you're doing at the conference, what speechwriting specialty you've got, and do you plan to come next year? And then we start the interview. Okay, now I'm going to switch on the recorder. I'm going to say, if you say anything that you don't like me to have recorded, or if I use it me flubbing a question. So I say, hello Wendy, sorry, hello Mary. Dixie, I forgot her name. I just leave this recording going, and I just say to people, we'll edit it later. And a good technique for interviewing with an executive that you might support is asking follow-up questions. Just ask, if they say, well, you know, Western region sales have been up 20%. Why was that? Well, it's because we introduced the new gizmo at the beginning of the quarter. And why do you think the new gizmo was a big hit? Well, the new gizmo really made a big difference to people in our weaker accounts. Oh, and what about the weaker accounts? And that keeps the interview going. So that's recording. Editing is a whole thing, and there's a learning curve here. Most of you, unless you're completely independent, you could outsource it. And for instance, at HP, there's a whole audio-visual department with people who can edit pretty easily. But it's child's play, essentially. What I show you here is a screenshot of a tool called Audacity. They all look pretty similar. I haven't seen the Mac, but I know it's similar. You know, you've got the audio is those blue lines that, if you magnify them, they start looking like sound waves. So editing is you're not going to pick this up if you've never seen the software and be functional on it in half an hour, but one afternoon with sort of a manual and playing around with it is all it can take for most people. And if you're too busy, or if that's not the best use of your time, a local teenager can do this for you, or somebody in your organization who already does the audio, visual, sound kind of stuff. And then the third step, so we've now got the file with its intro and outro, the content which we want to put out on the web as a podcast. And so it's not going to go anywhere if it stays on your computer. So the meaning of a podcast is you're casting it, you're broadcasting it, you're podcasting, right? Like the radio station's broadcasting. Well, this is on demand, so you're allowing people to download it off a web server. So it has to be, so here I'll talk specifically about my website. My website is Executive Communications. I have a blog called Professionally Speaking. So if you search for the well-known word Executive Communications on Google, I'm number 2 in the unpaid Google rankings because I've been blogging and speechwriting and so on for about 3 years. And that's the only reason I haven't done any what's called search engine optimization. I always wrap my audio in a blog entry. So if you see the video cast, which is similar, from Mike Long's event last night, yesterday morning, I said, oh, this is Mike Long, and he was at the Ragan Conference. I put a link to Ragan, and I said, Mike spoke on this, and he's part of the White House, what's it called, the White House Writers Group, and I put a link to that. And then people then have a context. Now, the beauty of it, of podcasting is, and this is what blew me away 18 months ago when I first started doing it, PodPress from WordPress and all the other services that I can talk about in a minute automatically post to each other. So without me doing anything else except some minor setup when I first set this audio system up, it goes to iTunes. So if you know the iTunes screen, where you not the iTunes that you have on your iPad, but the screen that you have on your computer at home, there's an iTunes store. So if you go to the iTunes store and you search for a musician like Robert Fripp, you'll find all of the songs that Patricia's brother recorded when he was in King Crimson, or other musicians. Bob Dylan, right? You'll see all of the songs by Bob Dylan. But if you go to the iTunes store and search for Ian Griffin, you find all my podcasts. Not because I did anything, and likewise with your executive. If you're supporting, the CEO of some company, Bob Smith, well, if you're supporting a CEO and his name's Bob Dylan, you've got a problem, because there's two Bob. But if he's got a unique name, or if he's Bob Smith of General Motors, then you can have your podcasts retrieved by anybody from iTunes. The only thing to be aware of in that is they only get the audio, so they don't get all this text I wrapped into on my own blog. So that's why I kind of, usually in the beginning of an audio interview, I say, well, I'm here at the Ragan Conference and I'm speaking with Joe, who's the so-and-so, and his topic is this, because then if somebody gets just the audio, they can get that. If you're not familiar with it, and if all this podcasting seems like, well, that's good for Ian, and he's a freelancer, and our organization is never, ever going to podcast because they're just never going to do it. At the very least, if all you take away from today is when you go back home, go to iTunes, go to the iTunes store, there's a button, there's a drop-down menu list for blues and gospel music, and find podcasts, and then put in a keyword of any topic that you're interested in, and I guarantee there's going to be podcasts on it, whether it's Persian cats, muffin recipes, or professional speaking. I mean, there's about a dozen to more, maybe 20 podcasts on speech and speechwriting.